Welcome, Illumineers. It is time to take a rest from your quest and check on in to the Lore Keeper's Inn. I'm your host, Kate. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to start my show is to celebrate the diversity of the Lorcana community by providing a space for people to be their most authentic self as we all talk about the game that we love. So, for this week, I wanted to take time specifically to talk about the importance of creating an inclusive space and promoting a safe space for LGBTQ members of our community, both locally and online. I have a wonderful panel of guests. This is the most exciting thing ever. So, I have first up somebody who is part of a team of ne'er do well parameter experts on the show, The Rules of Villainy. It is Vince. So, welcome, Vince.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Katie. I appreciate it. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, now listeners might not know this. This is the second time Vince has been on my show, but the first time I kicked him off.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I know. It was a terrible shame, walk of shame away
no,
from
it was
the.
an audio thing. It
It
was
was so.
not personal, but I did feel bad. So I'm very excited he could be back because it doesn't feel good to kick anyone off my show. Um, but it all worked out. So I'm happy you're here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here.
And then next up, I have my favorite person to judge me. You might recognize them from judging at the Disney Lorcana challenges, but they're also known as the Lorcana Librarian. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello. I also brought Daisy along.
I saw that. I was excited. I was like, we have another guest, which I don't have an introduction for Daisy.
No, she needs no introduction.
True. She's iconic on her own.
Yeah, she's in her Haunted Mansion finest, so.
Oh, I do love the little costumes. And last but not least, I have the dynamic duo that are the heroes of Reveal season and all around Lorcana content on their channel, Inkborn Heroes. Welcome, Matheus and Charlie.
Well, thanks for having us back. Thank you. I did not bring Daisy, but I brought Charlie, so he's here.
Yeah, you guys have many impressive gibbets and baubles behind you, so.
But thank you so much for having us. Yes.
Yes, I'm always excited when someone comes back. I think, Sarah, this is your second time on, and Vince, technically your second time. So that means that I wasn't off-putting the first time. So it's always a very exciting thing. So I want to kind of start the episode with an anecdote of why I wanted to do this episode, because I think people can forget that, especially like as myself, that, when you walk into a space, myself, I'm a cisgender heterosexual woman, and I sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm very comfortable here. And that's privilege because, there's certain things that, when you walk into a room, obviously you get a certain amount of acceptance depending on who's in that room. So that's, something I take for granted. And this became a hot topic locally for me. So a story that happened is there was some online mild bullying happening in my local city Discord. And without diving into like the nitty gritty specifics, one of the approaches that my friend who's a gay man said was, I want to go to the store where we all play and say, hey, can we put up some kind of sign saying this is a safe space? Just to kind of say that, yeah, maybe online things are a little Wild West, but no, here people can feel safe. And the store owner said, well, I don't want to do that because I can't really guarantee anyone's safety. So that was disheartening because I think people might overblow the term safe space to mean more than it probably might mean. So I wanted to also, this is just a lot of me talking up front, so sorry about that. But for the listeners, I did look up the term safe space, and there's historic contents to it. It's not a lofty concept. It is historically rooted in a place that's, in short, just where people can be themselves and don't feel the need to hide or, mask any part of their personality. So I'll kind of start there. Why do you think it's important for an LGS to say that they're a safe space or to promote that kind of environment?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'll get started. Just because for me, it being a safe space is huge. Going into playing Lorcana, organized play at a LGS. I get choked up. It took me several months to actually break a anxiety barrier to actually walk through the door. So I started scoping out a place online just through Facebook in September when the game launched, and it wasn't until January that I could actually go and sit down and play a game. And the individual that I sat across from was, the hyper shuffle, very competitive style player, and it was very scary. And I was like, oh, I knew I didn't belong here, right? However, the person who runs that league great individual. A lot of us already know who this person is Jordan, and he went out of his way to make sure that I felt welcome there and could come back. And that was just as a female presenting patron, you know what I mean? And obviously somebody that had anxiety issues. And so that was huge. So it is a big deal to say it's a safe space. And when you go, you don't expect that safety to be, my human body is not going to be assaulted while I'm here, which should be something that they should be doing anyway. Odd, but yeah, just having that idea of a place that, while not physically noticeable, someone is advocating for you there. Someone is holding space for you there. And that's what Jordan would come forward and do. But like just having the sign up is huge,
Sarah used a great term that, I mean, it's just having someone to advocate, because I think that's really important, is having someone that's willing, because, there are people that have the ability to speak up. So what about you, Charlie or Vince or Matheus? Why do you think that's important to be vocal about being a safe space?
Yeah, I think, like Katie said, we also need to acknowledge our privilege. We're both cis, white males, so it's kind of a lot of local game stores kind of are very open to people like us, even though we are gay. So I think like we can feel comfortable, and I know like we had the same kind of anxiety as Sarah when we first started playing, because we were new to TCGs. We were new to kind of the environment and what was kind of involved.
I think there's a lot of new levels, even in the sense of we were new to the city, we're new to Canada in Quebec, right? We're new to the language, which is another level of anxiety that will bring to us, right? But for me is I have that whole, it's not the case anymore, but I have to talk about the background, right? Coming from Brazil, we learn a completely different approach to homosexualism, right? It's something bad, it's something dangerous, it's something that you need to be aware of when you are in your surroundings. Obviously, I never went through that here in Canada, especially. I think Canada is such an evolved country in that sense. So it's okay. It was never comparison, but it's always stuck in the back of my mind, right? So coming to spaces like that, I'm not only being judged on myself being new to TCG in general, but judged by my mannerisms, the way I'm moving, the way I express myself, right? So it is scary. It's very scary. I think we were very lucky, though. The places that we've been, LGSs, were always very positive. We have one or two stories in one of the LGSs that wasn't as positive, but in general, it's very accepting. And the one that we attend the most nowadays is actually, there's so many other people, like there's lesbian couples, there's Gabe, which is one of the trans person that attends as well. So it feels very welcoming in that sense. But yeah, I think that's kind of a simplification of everything. We're getting there. We still have a lot of anxiety going to any place, to be honest, related to Lorcana. Even going challenges, right, to Lorcana challenges and so on. There's always the level of pressure. But I think in the position where we are, it's like the three of us or all of us here, I feel like there's that additional blockage and barrier that we also have to face just naturally for being how we are, right? But
Yeah.
it's getting there.
It's such a good point that, I mean, you're already in a high stress environment because you're putting yourself out there. At the very least, I mean, you strip yourself down to just a blank slate of a person. You're still walking into a room and being like, okay, I hope this isn't terrible. So knowing that, you can't necessarily look at a person and know off the bat when they walk in, be like, oh, this person is gay or trans. So sometimes I think people might feel like they might need to hide that. And I always want to make sure people know, they're like, no, I want you to be you. And that's at my own league, and anything it is. I want to know about the deeper layers, the next layer of like, yeah, you play Lorcana, but who are you? And so I like that you bring up that can be kind of scary, because it's already scary just to go as baseline. And then what about you, Vince? I mean, what has been your kind of experience?
Yeah, I mean, kind of very similar to everybody else here is, right, like Lorcana is my first TCG, and I was really excited to get into it. And I didn't really know about all these local game stores in my area. And I kind of lucked out that I went to like a Learn to Play at the very beginning of Lorcana. And I heard about this game store in our area called Fortuna. And I like Googled them, and like they had a pride flag in their like image. And like instantly I was like, that's my place. Like, that's where I'm going to go. And you go there, and like, it doesn't just, it's not, there's nothing there that screams like this is a safe space, but they've created an environment that lets people know like this is an inclusive place. Like they sell LGBT type of merch, they have like trans flag dice, they have, LGBT dice and like play mats, and they had like rules about being respectful to folks there and stuff. They have there's this, as you can tell, I'm a big Lego fan. They have this like Lego set that's the LGBTQ like Lego set they did a few years ago. So they had that built in like their thing. So it's just like a really welcoming environment. And it's, as a person who, I don't think people look at me and necessarily like, oh yes, he's gay and stuff. So there's always a thing as a gay man to be like, like, is this a safe place to tell people? Like, do I feel like this is what I want to, are these the people and stuff? So you kind of got to suss that out. But having a place where, you feel like people that are going to come here are, if they're going to stay and play week to week, they have some sort of ideology that kind of aligns and stuff. And it's like, I don't want to get too political per se, but I feel like identity unfortunately has become political in the world, right? But having LGBT game stores, this one actually just happens, I didn't know till I'd been there a while. They are a queer owned store, which is awesome. But having other game stores that have things like gender neutral bathrooms and stuff, are there a lot of trans players that go? I don't know. Like you said, we don't know how folks identify and stuff. People may not feel safe coming, but just being able to like have places where people can feel comfortable existing. And that's the thing I love about Lorcana. And that was the one thing that really made me apprehensive about like gaming, right? Is you go watch Magic or any of these others, it's like they're very male dominated. They're, there's a very standard type, but you go to like Lorcana, it's like you've got men, women, and you've got black, you've got gay, straight, trans. There's a whole bunch of people in our community, and it does feel a heck of a lot more accepting than I think other games that are out there. At least there seems to be some real effort by Ravensburger to make it a more welcoming space.
To speak on, not only is it Ravensburger, but PPG putting on the events. A lot of staff and judge staff especially have said that in other games, like you don't see the percentage of non-male judges. So marginalized genders being represented in the judge pool has been really great. And getting folks that are not only judging, but in lead positions. So, and a lot of people have said like in other games, they don't see and they don't feel welcome to even try to be a female judge or whatnot in other spaces. And so being a queer woman in that space is bizarre enough, you know what I mean? It just feels like so many barriers that people have to fight through. And it feels like PPG, Ravensburger, and maybe Disney, I'm not sure, but they're trying with this game to definitely make it a safe space, it feels like.
Yes. And I mean, I think obviously this episode, I kind of am focusing on LGBTQ issues, but I mean, everything we're talking about, a safe space kind of applies to any kind of minority aspect. What I'll say is that I think sometimes we forget that we have our own biases. And so you generally, when you look at a game, people will replicate. They'll be like, well, I only see male judges, so maybe only guys judge. And I only see males winning, so maybe only men win. And then I only see, straight people do well. So you start to kind of, even if you don't know you're doing it subconsciously, sometimes you'll even accidentally make your brain think that some things are normal when they're really normal because people let it be normal. So I'm excited that in Lorcana we're building a community that we want to be different. Like it's intentional, and I see it on like a micro level of every person in the community being very proactive about, no, I want this to be different than something they've experienced before.
Yeah, I manage a team. I often tell my team members, like, thank you for what you're doing in the community, because they go out of their way to make sure that they're a safe space as a Discord and as a team. And just when they're at the DLCs or any interactions that they're having with people at their own LGSs. And I constantly thank them, and they're just like, you shouldn't have to thank us for doing the things that like are normal and are like human. And I was like, isn't it bizarre that you have to be thanked for this? But I definitely want the positive reinforcement here. You know what I mean? Like it shouldn't go unsung. But also, yeah, it's not a heroic effort that they're doing, but at the same point, like it is still a necessary effort.
Yeah, and it's an active thing. I mean, it's something you have to keep trying at to be like, every league has been going on for a year in most areas at this point. So it's kind of telling people like, hey, if someone's new, that's a fresh day for them. So greet them with the kind of that open heart kind of thing of being like, oh, who are you? Asking their name, being mindful of what pronouns they use. And I love what you pointed out, Vince, that it's not necessarily about being like explicit, like signs everywhere, like, by the way, this is so like, you don't have to beat people over the head with being accepting. It can just be natural as part of the space, and putting in little things that let people know that's like, oh no, we know people exist. I think kind of nodding at people can sometimes go a long way because it kind of lets people know without asking that, oh, okay, that you know that trans people exist, that gay people exist. I don't have to like be like, hey, that's a thing, right? So I
Yeah.
love mentioning that that's something that a store can do without necessarily being going all in, because I think that sometimes things that stores, like the store I was talking to was afraid of, is like, well, I don't want to make that our identity. I'm like, well, it's not your identity. It's just being open that you acknowledge it.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of just about being courteous, right, to the
Yeah.
community and stuff. And like, I mean, that store I think goes above and beyond. I wouldn't even, I think it's great that they like put like feminine hygiene products in their bathroom, which is phenomenal. I think all bathrooms should totally do that. But it's just one of those things. It's like, you go to a place and you feel like this is a place I can have community, because that's what this game is about. Like I've met so many great people, like everybody that we do Rules of Villainy with, I didn't know like barely a year ago. I think I was just getting to know them all a year ago, and it's all because of this game. And it's just a phenomenal community to be a part of and to be supported. Like a great example of this is like, I did not see your original post in the Discord. Brad messaged me and Andy was like, you should absolutely do this. Like, this would be a great thing for you to do. And I was like, oh, great. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
So just being able to like have people that support you and, lift you up and lift other people up too in the community. And I think some of that though requires us to also, police behavior too, which is why I think it's important, as you said, Sarah, to like reward positive behavior. But some of that comes at the expense of like, unfortunately, there's still some in any community, here are going to be some negative aspects. And I think it's our responsibility in some ways to, not everybody can speak up, but those that can should.
Yeah. And it's something where I unfortunately will tussle with a lot of people on the internet about this, because it's a good and bad thing. Because like I sometimes I'm spinning my wheels with people where I'm like, some people just block them, move on. But I mean, we had in a local Discord, there's now a rule where we cannot bring up Pride Month because it's political, which is bananas. But this is just Katie's soapbox now. But you have things like that where you're like, I can't win that. I don't own the Discord. I can't do anything about it, but I can make changes in my interactions. I can tell people one-on-one, I don't agree with that. I think I made sure to say I don't agree with it when they told me. And so it's hard. I don't think there's so many big mountains where I think I want to just like yell and be like, no, don't be like that. And I don't think we can all the time. And that's a lot of energy too. So it's kind of like, okay, well then what can I do? And it's like those interactions on League and online.
It is very interesting, actually, you say that. Just unfortunately touching on the subject election, without commenting anything, any side, but it was very recent, right? The USA election, and us running our own Discord, which is even more awkward. I didn't know what sort of role our community was expecting in that aspect. And the reaction was, because the majority, I think, is from USA of our followers on Discord. So the reaction was, as soon as the results came out, a lot of people being against the results, right? Being very vocal and saying how scared they were, as we all were at that time, right? But then some people actually reacted negatively, saying, I wish this Discord wasn't about this. I'm going to leave the Discord. And some people left, right? In my position and in our position, I'm talking with Charlie, what do we do here? Like, I understand politics and religion, it is a very tricky subject. We don't want to touch those. But in our position, what we represent or what we want to represent with Inkborn Heroes, we want to be ourselves. It's our identity. At the same time, I would never support something like that, right? As Inkborn Heroes, as Matheus, as Charlie, right? So it's such a tricky situation. And it just makes me think, because you refer to your LGS Discord, your local Discord. What do we do at that point, right? And I think the stance we took, or I took, maybe Charlie didn't agree entire, it was, let's not talk about this in this general chat. If you are scared, because a lot of people were feeling very low that day, reach out to us. We will talk with you. We'll help you. Let's talk together, but let's not make the main thing of the day, which is unfortunate because I felt so bad saying that, because I don't agree with that at all, right? But I also have to understand that at the end of the day, that's why there's an election. That's why there's democracy. That's why people will have different opinions, for better or worse. Don't get me wrong. I hate that choice. Right?
I definitely felt different because I think one of the things that's happened with us inadvertently is because we are a gay couple, we're married, and we don't necessarily make that the focus of our content, but I think it comes across and people know us as like a gay couple. And so the community that's been built around our channel that hang out in our Discord, there are like marginalized genders, there are LGBTQ people, there are people with anxiety. So like inadvertently, which really coolly is, we built this kind of safe space for those types of people. So like at the end of the day, like I think that's the community we want. And if people are feeling kind of counter to that, then I'm almost happy for them not to be in the Discord.
No, I agree. I'm not saying, I feel like whoever felt offended should leave at the end of the day, because again, we want to be next to the people that feel like the love can be shared, obviously.
Yeah.
But there is a higher line, and I think that's the tricky part, right? In our position as well, as being an open Discord for everyone to come, as long as we are respecting each other, right? Because this person that was not happy with the discussions never said anything bad either, right? They actually never came across as being anything racist, homophobic. They actually...
They certainly weren't pro either side. They just didn't want to talk about politics.
They just didn't want politics to be the topic of the day, which I understand, right? But again, I don't have the answer. I'm just trying this here because I think it fits very well. It's such an interesting point as a content creator. How do you take or not take sides? Obviously, I'm going to make very clear in this video, I'm taking side. I'm against the result 100%. I'll never understand that. Well, I will, because it happens everywhere now, but it's horrible. But in our position as content creators, what do we do, right? That's a tricky question, yeah.
Well, and like I told some people on Twitter, I was like, being able to tune out some things like election result, that is also a privilege. Being able to say, well, I'm not going to think about it. That's just the privilege of me being me. I get to forget about it. But there's some people that are like, oh my God, my medications. Oh my God. So it's like, I get to forget about it. That's really cool that I can just move on and talk about Lorcana. Not everybody can. And I think holding space for people to be like, listen, I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes, but I'm so sorry. And just say that, like, to acknowledge that that is a real experience. And that they can't talk about the cool new card today because they're distracted. I think sometimes that can be important. It's just acknowledging, like, no, I totally understand that you're not feeling good. And you shouldn't have to pretend to be good because it's upsetting other people that you're feeling bad today.
Yeah. We had, unfortunately, we've just always scheduled to record the Rules of Villainy podcast on Wednesday night. So Tuesday was the election. So the next day was when we're recording our podcast. So it's a little rough. We were all not quite feeling it, but we also have our Discord. And so, we went and we were thinking, like, what do we say? What do we want to say on our show about this? And what do we want to say, in our Discord? Because one of the things, like, I was strongly advocate for, and really, Brad and Andy were both on the same page. This is like, it is just say nothing is also saying something. Silence can speak a lot louder sometimes than speaking up. And we were, and I think, as a privilege of, 3 cisgendered white dudes on a podcast, like, we knew that we had some power to say, like, this is a safe space here at Rules of Villainy, that we're going to stand up. And particularly, like, we wanted to speak out for, like, trans folks, because those are the people that are being attacked in our community, and not just politically, but like actively on our community. There have been Twitter, like, some really nasty things being said about trans folks in our community. And that's just frankly unacceptable. And so we said that on our Discord too, like this is a safe place. We want this to be welcoming. We encourage folks not to talk about politics, but if people did want to do that, we would create like a separate channel for them if that's something they wanted to do to have an outlet. Like we wanted to give folks that ability to. Nobody spoke up to do that, so we didn't do that. Maybe we should have created the channel just for those folks that didn't want to speak up. But at the end of the day, we didn't want our podcast or our Discord to turn into a political discussion, because that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about this great Disney Lorcana game and some awesome cards and Azurite Seas on the horizon. But we also recognize that like that is also a privilege to take a break from the politics of that. And like I said, it's really annoying that like, identity is so linked to politics, that somebody's existence is political. And I mean, I knew that growing up as a kid and stuff. Like here, I live in the state of Missouri, and I remember as a high school student seeing like marriage amendments to ban gay marriage in the state and stuff. And like, what message does that send to like gay kids, that are struggling, that are thinking about, things like suicide, and like, trans folks that do too and stuff. And, that's why it's so important for me that if we can provide safe space, give somebody the outreach, give them some hope, some light at the end of the tunnel. Because ultimately, like that's what I want to be about, and also like what this game is about. Like that's like Disney, happiest place on earth,
I like that you mentioned the youth part, because I think the biggest thing is creating because I mean, ultimately, it's none of my business what anyone is. That's like my biggest thing is I shouldn't have to go up and be like, so what are we all doing here? Like, I think at the end of the day, it should just be a place where people can show up as they are and see people around them being accepted. Young people can grow up knowing that whatever they end up being, they can be who they are. Older people feel comfortable in who they are to be. So like that's my biggest important thing is if it's working well, you really don't need to say anything, because it's just everybody's being authentic and it just is natural. That's the ideal now. And Sarah, I didn't get to you. What is your political statement? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no.
We're all making official statements now.
Yeah, and me over here being like, you have to be neutral. Oh
I
my
know, and
God.
that's
I have the worst time, just
Yeah.
because of every foot that I have in the game right now as a judge,
yeah.
as a content creator, and as a manager of a professional team. I would, like, in my professional aspect of Lorcana, we have a very 800 something almost Discord for the team. And so we had to make a statement from our Twitter that was like, because we were as a team, how we all feel as a team, but also we're like, well, we can't alienate the fan base that like we don't agree with. But also we've created this space for people, and we have to make sure that they feel welcome. It was the first time I cried during a meeting call. So yeah, which was something I had like tried to not do, like as a female in a leadership position. I was like never cry in front of these people, and yeah, that was the day that I cried. So
Yeah. It's heavy. I mean, it's hard
so
because I think people want to naturally be even keel, but when it's yourself, when you're talking about
yeah,
your identity, the core being of who you are, it's hard to be like, I have no opinions.
yeah. I have children that are non-binary, etc. All. So my husband partner is Hispanic. So we're all very scared. So even though I live in this great bubble, it is like nothing but like anxiety. Like even now, this is like why my body language is like this. Like I'm afraid, you know what I mean? Like I'm afraid for
Yeah.
my family, and I get the privilege of like presenting as like a white cis female and just blow through life with all this privilege that like even one of my daughters presents as Hispanic, and we can sit at the same table at a restaurant and she gets treated different. It is nuts. So
Sorry.
yeah, it's just like, just like I'm trying to navigate this is like, how do I help? What is my place? Like, what do I do? You know what I mean? How do I help?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, not to be like, well, I've got the solution, but I mean, that's why I
Right.
wanted to kind of talk on this episode, is to say that it is overwhelming. And then there's little things we can do, because I think that's all we really can do is like the whole think globally, act locally, and we can vote, but then it's also we can show up to LGS and do our best there. I did kind of want to bring up the internet because that's like the thing. Most of us, I mean, none of us, and we've met in person, a couple of us, but I mean, mostly we even interact only online. Um, I appreciated the team's stance of just saying it's not really a discussion. Like, we're not going to discuss it because we want to be a safe space, and we're going to just say that's the end of discussion. We stand with our community, and like I like that because it makes a message and kind of doesn't leave any kind of gray area, which I appreciate. How has been, you kind of already touched on it with the Discord, that it's not easy. Both of you sound like you run it, or all three of you sound like you run a Discord. Has there been examples of like allyship that you've seen that you're like, well, that's good? Where I know you mentioned kind of like your team speaking up, but have there been any other examples where you're like, that's the direction it should be going in, versus everybody has an example of the bad direction we don't want to see online?
Yeah. I think what I would say is like we had a lot of folks that responded very positively to our comment, about this being a safe space. We're also, I think, a little bit privileged in the fact that like we're only like 4 months old as a podcast. We just launched our Discord, maybe a month and a half ago at most. So we don't have a huge following and stuff. So in some ways that helps us set a much more positive tone, and set a tone of like folks coming in. Also, we did a lot of, again, not to be like terribly political, but more democratically active. We also reminded folks like every episode leading up to the election to like make sure they're registered to vote and go vote. So it wasn't an unusual thing for us to necessarily step out and talk, about the aftermath. But one of the things that I think we did say to folks is, and it's the advice I'd give to a lot of folks out there, is don't feel like you have to do everything, and stuff. It's like you take time for yourself. It's like I still have to take time for myself. It's hard, right? And you've got to have energy, and like you're not always going to be able to do, and it's okay to not always do the right thing as long as you've like the right intentions, and can sometimes you say the wrong things, you learn, you grow and stuff. Like I don't want to be a place where it's like you got to say the right thing all the time. Like I want people that are learning. Like we have a lot of folks that are older in our community too, that grew up in a different time and may say things the wrong way, and stuff. And it's like, well, okay, well, this is like, what we would say now, right? And like
Yeah.
they grow and they learn, and that's the type of stuff you want to embrace and stay and stuff. And I don't want to be like, oh, you said the wrong thing, like that's bad, it's like you're not allowed here
Yeah.
and stuff. It's like I want folks to be able to grow and learn, and we lift everybody up. But it's the folks that are the bad actors that like there's nothing in the world I can do to convince and stuff. Like I personally don't have the mental energy for it and stuff. And that's why trying to create a group so other people can step into and feel safe, that they'll be supported if they stand up and say something for other folks. And that's kind of what a safe space is about too, right? So it's also about the bystander feeling safe and supported in an environment to be like, hey, don't say that here, or like that's not acceptable here.
Yeah. I mean, Sarah is part of a community that I think is a great example of the Love to Lore community, where it was just like, the space doesn't exist, so let's make it kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so, you influenced a lot of other women and non-binary people to be like, oh, well, I found a space I can be in. And so it didn't exist, now it does. And it's just, I don't want to say it's as simple as creating a Discord, because you guys put a lot of work into it, and it's more than
Yeah.
just that. But creating those spaces
And it's tough. Yeah.
makes waves.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It seemed like this simple thing. It seemed like it's gonna make me cry, because us coming together to make that Discord was it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
I was feeling alone, and on Instagram, that's where my content was. And
Mhm.
Twitter was happening, and I wasn't even on Twitter because I didn't feel comfortable being. And I didn't know that there were people on Twitter having the same experience that I was having. And Rebecca from Rebecca Quest, did a video where we all kind of like passed the card to each other. Did this like project where we could all kind of get together, because she could tell we were kind of isolated. You know what I mean? And so doing that, and then seeing the people at like Chicago, like Missy Enchanted, and seeing her and like I was judging, so I just walked by and just was like, hey, ladies who lore, you know what I mean? And just like that feeling of community, like she felt empowered to compete because she just felt like we were in it together. So creating that community was huge. When Rebecca was like, there's people on Twitter that want to, because I kept telling her like, we need to make a group, like a group chat in the Instagram where we can just like group up together because we'll be stronger together. Because I haven't talked about the negativity that I've encountered here with going to League and being a highly competitive player in a field that is male dominated, and the things that I've come across, because like why dwell, right? We all know the BS, but I really wanted that camaraderie so that I could feel empowered to keep going. And so when we all came together to found that together, Becky and why am I not remembering names? I'm just too emotional.
Well, I think Kim helped too with
Yeah.
that, right?
Kim came on way later as an organizer,
yeah.
but she's just like powerhouse of being a cheerleader and just like out there that like, yeah, I was like, we need this person on our social media. We need like, because she's just the optimal person to have to amplify you. And yeah, and so yeah, Caroline and Lauren, so many different people that are just credited to founding that and creating a space where we could all get together. And it's been huge because people have gone on to compete in the DLC because they felt like they could, or they got coached because and up their game because they felt empowered. And just having a huge amount of camaraderie nationwide. So like when the election happened, I was like, I'm in Oregon. I have resources, right, that you probably are not going to have access to. Like, we can make a system here. And having that Discord to like instantly activate to like help people is huge. So anyway, I'm a mess. I get emotional really easy, apparently.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because at the start we were saying like Lorcana, Ravensburger, PPG have all kind of worked to build this game that's like inclusive. But I think from my perspective, it seems a lot more like the grassroots effort, like Love to Lore, just like having a lot of content creators who are openly about making this a safe space, about welcoming everyone. And I think that kind of percolates down. Like I can't think of a single content creator who's well known that hasn't openly said at one point or another, this is like a game for everyone and this is a safe space for everyone. So like, thank you so much, Sarah, for like the efforts you made with Love to Lore. Like we're not part of it, obviously, but it is felt, and I know like it's felt in the community. And
it's a very powerful message. It's very powerful, very important message. Yeah.
And I think like, not to go back to the negativity, but I remember when Rebecca posted about it on the Facebook group, and then, you know, there were the nice comments, but then there was like a wall of people saying, why do we need this?
Yes.
Like, what is the point of this? And I think that just highlighted the fact that it
answered. Yeah, that's literally the answer why we need this.
Yeah, or the groups that would reach out to me afterwards and be like, well, I'm going to make a boys group and just going to like,
do it.
Love that for you. You guys should feel supported. You're very emotional, you guys, you know?
Yeah.
You're like, ironically, that's every team so far.
Yeah.
So the good news. So
not gonna say anything.
I will just say on the Rules of Villainy team, our best player is Kirsten. So she just knocks it out of the park, and I love to give her husband Andy trouble about it. But she loves hearing about the Love to Lore, and it's encouraged her because she wants to do an all ladies version of our podcast, which I'm super excited. Will be hopefully coming sometime next year, and I don't think something like that would have happened without you, Sarah. You know, creating that.
It's all of us. Like I'm not the only one. Like there was a whole.
I know.
Whole board.
I will just say too, you did encourage me to like apply for the judge, so I appreciate that because I wasn't gonna do it until we talked about it in Seattle. So
awesome.
Well, and that's such a good point that like seeing Sarah be a judge, I'm like, wait a minute. I can now. I can't because I don't have the commitment to, you know, be good at that. But knowing that, like, seeing people do hard things, it's hard to even quantify how much that matters, because, you know, once you see somebody do it, it's amazing how inspirational just that is. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, even like Rebecca Quest making content, you know, then I was like, oh, I can make silly content, and seeing you judge, I'm like, oh, and then seeing other people apply. It's very cool to see the ripples in real time. And the community is small enough where you can see it happen in real time and follow the chain of where people got their inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it
love
just
it.
goes to show you that like representation truly matters. And so when you see other folks do it that are similar to you, it gives you the courage to step out of your own box to do it as well and stuff. And so, you know, it's hardest for the first person to do it in a vacuum, but every other person that steps out, it's just a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And that's really what it's about, is like, I don't want, you know, some queer teen kid to have the same experience I did when I was growing up. Like, that is not a world I want for the future. I want to make the world better so that people don't have that experience. And that's, you know, what I try to do in our little small corner of the world here.
Yeah. And we're lucky that, you know, our small corner of the world is now a big corner, because it's the entire country and Canada and Europe. So it's small and big at the same time. I don't want to mask the complexity of the issue, but we could talk for a very long time about it. But I did want to kind of go around and kind of to say, I mean, if you had to kind of give one piece of advice to an LGS being like, well, how can I make this space better? Or maybe someone's starting a league. Do you have a piece of advice that you would be like, you know, that's just general good advice? And I'll start with you, Matheus and Charlie. Do you have any advice? I know, sorry. You have to start. I
It's
didn't tell you this was
no,
only
for me,
assignment.
it's interesting because before this call, I was telling Charlie, what is the answer to that? Like, you know, when you click and you start thinking about something that we never actually, well, myself at least,
Yeah.
and I've actually gone through the process because, again, we're lucky with the LGS we're going, so we already feel so welcoming, right? But it's interesting listening to Vince's answer, and it's like, actually, what you're describing your LGS is like the perfect for me. If that could be replicating every single LGS, that would be perfect. Like having the presence of things that just hints that you're welcome without having to push it, that I'll call it an agenda. I know that's not the case, right? But it's something more subtle, right? I think is very important. It's actually recognizing that space like that and receiving and welcoming other people, because we've been seeing this growing in our LGS at the moment. As I said, we were the first gay couple as far as I know. And then now we're seeing the gay lesbians. Now someone else, a trans person came in. And it's like, you can see that naturally evolving. And it's so interesting because for myself, I didn't even notice at first. It felt so natural in a way because everything together felt so natural. And then one day we came back home and I was telling Charlie, I just realized that literally more than 50% of the people are minority in the LGS. And it's such a good energy when you come from somewhere else, which is so competitive and so male dominant and very, like you said, shuffling super fast and looking at us a little bit in the side eye, being like content creators of Lorcana that is new to TCG in general and is gay, because we did pass through that as well. Unfortunately, in another place, like they're like, they cannot be good if they're new and if they are gay and if this and that, right? So it is. Long story short, I think the answer I would give, not thinking too deeply, is I wish every single LGS would replicate what Vince's story was in his LGS.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting hearing you say that, because I like, again, we're in Canada, we're in a big city, so it's a very like open-minded atmosphere anyway, and all of the LGS we go to, they have gender-neutral bathrooms, they have, like as you said, female products in those bathrooms. I'm fairly sure one of them has a pride sticker in the window, and it's like all of these little things that we absolutely take for granted that I haven't even really paid attention to until you mentioned that was like maybe the exception in your area rather than kind of the general way it's approached. So I think for sure, like doing it more like that, just kind of making the space welcoming without necessarily needing to promote it as kind of like a gay LGS. I think that's kind of probably the best way that stores can, keep it friendly for everyone.
Yeah.
Because personally, I like the idea of, because you're talking about the promoting part, right? I actually appreciate when there's the mix, because I feel like everyone is learning from each other, right? It's so easy to say, oh, we know all the answers. We don't. We're learning so much from the non-minority side, and it's a chance for us to either indirectly educate. It's a strong word because I'm not educating anyone, but you know what I mean? Like on the day-to-day, just the way we're acting and doing things. So it's so nice when you actually see those two words blending together in such a natural way. And Disney kind of feels like almost like the key for that. I'm not saying that's the promotion. It's just so
Yeah.
natural, right? It feels like it's really so natural in our experience so far.
Yeah. No, it's hard because sometimes I'll come across bigotry and I'm like, how did you get into Disney Lorcana with
Yeah.
that attitude? How did you end up here? So it
Yeah.
is, but then remembering that, like, okay, no, I need to.
It's for everybody.
So Sarah, I mean, it sounds like you have a good LGS that you go to.
Can I show
but,
you something real quick if we're going to brag about LGSs? Hold on.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Where's the drum roll?
I know, right?
I'm so
So
excited.
when we were talking about what your LGS can do, how about instead of banning Pride, we make Pride lands?
Oh my
that is so
God,
fun.
this is amazing.
And so I'm
That's
trying to
so
make it
cute.
focus better.
Oh
But
my God.
one of
I
our
love it.
locals, he always brings a custom proxy card for every holiday. One of those being Pride Month. So he brought this on one of the community members, and so our LGS host made you get extra points if you do the theme deck. So it's a choice. You can choose not to do the theme deck, but you could choose to do your pride flag. And so he had like parameters of like different ink colors or different pride flags that you could choose from, or you could just do the general one or, whatever. So you could play each other and like have conversations about each other's pride flags
Nice.
and be like an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great. I loved it. And hey, you don't even have to do that for Pride Month. You could do it like every month, Hey, just
Yeah.
saying. But yeah, I am deeply blessed. But that is one LGS that they're out of many. We have another one that is gay owned. It's great. Everyone wears a mask because, hey, some people are immune compromised in our community and people don't remember that. But it's like just little things like that kind of just be like, we're a place. If every employee is persistently wearing a mask, that tells me that you understand gay culture. So,
Yeah. I mean,
and
but it is those little signs though, right?
Right.
Like where it's like you see something, you're like, oh, they get it.
get it.
And like
Just,
whatever it
on
is,
a deep
you're
level,
like,
yeah. So
Yeah.
these are the little things that you can do. It feels big, right? It feels like a big ask, but it is just a little thing, and it makes a huge impact. I think.
yeah. I mean, I would love to say that I never went to that LGS again, but then at the same time, I was like, well, no, I want to still be there. Me and my friends will either like wear something with a rainbow on it when we go there, or I have a lore counter that is rainbow and says "Love your lore." Just because I'm like, well, maybe if there's any, because I still want to like let people know, be like, if you're here, there's still people. You got
Yeah.
allies, even if you think you don't. There's still people that care about you and want you to be exactly who you are. So,
And I'm
I
not
love-
perfect. I am very old, even though it's not noticeable. I come from, like everyone was like, oh, this year made me sad. And I was like, I don't even have an animated movie for my year because I'm before it,
I mean, Snow White came out, I think, in like 1930 something. So I'm
Right.
hoping.
So, hey, I'm I'm a
Okay.
witch. No.
Okay, yeah. I was like, you're like, yeah, before animated film.
No. Like there was nothing for 1980. Spoiler alert. But I was like, okay, fine. It's Herbie Goes Bananas. Yay for me. But that was
That's a
the
good
gift
one.
I could find. But I am still code switching my vernacular that the 80s and 90s blessed me with. And so I am still learning, and it is okay to still be learning.
Yes.
When my LGS does have a jar for when I misgender one of our members, and I'm not proud of it. So because I'm trying so hard. I am still trying, and it is okay to still be trying because nobody's perfect.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a really important message because a lot of people are almost too scared to try because they don't want to make a mistake. And I think like if you misgender someone or someone is misgendered, like we can educate them, and I think that is an important part of the learning process. You shouldn't be scared to make mistakes.
Yeah. It should be a safe place to fail too.
Yeah.
So you should say, as long as you're trying, as long as you're trending towards being a
If
better
your heart is
person,
in the
then-
right place,
Yeah,
right? If
yeah.
you're being polite and you didn't mean
Yeah.
in a bad way, obviously, right? Okay.
That's the safety I guarantee.
Yeah.
Safety to
Like-
fail.
And then Vince, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, you're the gold standard of LGSs, but I mean, if you're
Well, I
I
got
mean,
very lucky. We have a bunch of great LGSs here in the St. Louis area, and we have also a really great community. Uh, but I think the takeaway for me actually is like, probably for folks who are listening is like, I think setting just kind of boundaries and rules, right? They can be pretty simple too. Like be respectful, right? Like this is stuff I think like we learned when we were really young, that we can apply to adulthood and put in our environments to, be respectful, to treat others how we want to be treated, right? Just reminding ourselves. Because I think like what tends to happen, right, which is like in online too, especially like in the place formerly known as Twitter, is people. It's so easy, I think, to dehumanize a person because they're just like a screen name on a computer, and you're never going to meet this person. But like these are people that are in our communities. We're going to league nights, we're going to DLCs. And so having that opportunity to really kind of set the standard and be like, this is what we want, it's like, I know we've talked a lot about LGBT issues here too, and we've touched on gender issues, but I also say it's like one thing is like, I really need like my fellow male players to stop being jerks to female judges at competitions. Like that would be great. Please. It should go without saying, like they know the rules, just as well as anybody does. So just, making sure that we're doing the best we can to like make our community better and stuff. And, my hope is that some of this is like, people are just so not used to it. It's a new environment. This is I've heard it said a lot because this is my first TCG that like, this is the most diverse card game that people have seen, the most diverse events, the most diverse judging staff. And that may be kind of mind breaking for some folks that are used to other card games. So giving folks some benefit of the doubt and being able to expand, but also like, just don't be a jerk. That's like, I think my number one rule of here.
yeah, that should be everywhere, I would hope, but it
Yeah.
isn't. And so we just have
Yeah.
to keep be nice. That's just, please.
Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate all of you joining tonight. I know it's just wonderful to hear your insights and your people in the community that I look up to. And I know other people look up to. So I'm very thankful that you guys took the time to be on my show tonight. And so before we say goodbye, I want to give people a chance if they somehow don't know where to find and follow you. I'll start with you, Sarah. If people wanted to find and follow your journey as a judge and as a Lorcana player, where would they find you?
I am most reliably on Instagram. I dabble in Twitter X, but I'm definitely flying high on Blue Sky. So either way.
I know. So fast. How long? I mean, I'm just so impressed that it's like exploded and it's like given. Sometimes I forget. I think I'm on Twitter and I'm not. I'm on Blue Sky and I'm like, oh wow, this is natural and working and I love it.
Yeah. It's a fun time. It's a positive little pocket, right?
And what is your handle? If people
Lorcana
use it,
Librarian. At most places, X, I'm a lore librarian because Lorcana Librarian was too long, but now I'm just like, that's fine. We're fine.
Yeah, it's whatever.
So most places, Lorcana Librarian.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing all your stories
Yeah,
tonight.
thank you for having a forum because like we said, like having this space it's important,
Absolutely. And to you, Vince, I'm proud of myself. I got your ne'er-do-well. I already forgot it, but I already got your intro good. So now you can do your outro.
Yeah, well,
Where can people find and follow you?
Thank you. We're everywhere on YouTube and the platform formerly known as Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Rules of Villainy. But thank you so much, Katie, for hosting this. This is such a great time and getting to talk with everybody here so much. So thank you again for having us on.
Absolutely. And I'll also, last but not least, Charlie Matheus, where can people find and follow you? You have a little hint on your shirt, but for people who can't see the shirt, where can
No, the wrong
follow
side.
you?
Yeah, we're Inkborn Heroes on YouTube. We also have Blue Sky if you want to interact with me. We have Instagram if you want to interact with Matheus and get all of the latest Lorcana news. And we have a Facebook page, right?
We have a Facebook page.
We're everywhere.
It's also Inkborn Heroes. We had X, but
No, we don't. Not anymore.
we don't have it anymore, apparently. I never used, I don't know how to use Twitter or X. I never knew, so it's all Charlie. But I told you, let's close it. We're not using that,
Yeah.
which,
It's a great time to do it. Thanks.
exactly. So, like,
Buy, sell.
But yeah, YouTube and Instagram is the two bigger platforms that
Yeah.
we have, both at Inkborn Heroes. Yeah. Thank you so much for having us again. I'm hoping it's as good as the last time. Didn't feel disappointed to invite us again, but
Oh,
we
yeah.
had a
You're
blast.
always invited.
I love you all, meeting you all. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope you guys got to rest up because we're almost in reveal season again and you guys have to clock back in. You just clocked out, but you got to clock back in because the reveals are going to start any day now for the next set.
Yeah, enjoy your trip.
I'm not ready.
Thank you.
I know, right? The minute the new set's out, they're like, sorry, it's new set. So hopefully you get some time to
We already have Iago. I mean, gosh, we're like
No,
halfway
I know,
there.
set
That's
8.
That's
Yeah.
at like 8, right? Yeah.
Did you start your chart for set 8? Like, it's just one card. It's just
I think
Iago
Iago's
sitting
set
there?
9, right?
Iago is 8. Iago is
Oh,
8.
he is it.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he's just
So it's
sitting
the
there.
right
That's the one
himself.
that's coming in the D23.
Yes.
Yes.
For the
Like
gold
everyone's gonna be
membership.
a member now. Like,
Yeah.
forget it.
Well, I know.
For one card. They're like, I'm in. Well, thank you again. And thank you to the listeners for joining on another episode. As you know, there is always room at the end for more. So if there's anything you want to hear me talk about, feel free to email me, contact@thelorekeepersin.com or Instagram or Blue Sky or the socials in the description. There's a lot, unfortunately or fortunately. As always, thank you for hanging out with me today. We're always happy to have you to stop by, no matter where your journey may take you. And if you don't know where to find us, just take the second start of the right exit and head straight on till morning.